We have like 10 different countries. Live stream, got it. Right now, and all the delegations are here just now from all over the world, from France, from everywhere.
Yeah. It looks like we're
about to get started.
Now we've got a little clock ticking down. At least I've got the website in front of me as well.
Well, good luck.
Thank you, everyone. I have to try and look at the camera too. This is very important. Now I've got my eye on two screens. And the other one, the public one, just says waiting. So, oh, you can go, it says here. Okay, right. Well, welcome everyone to this session at Beyond the Known, where we're looking at 5 ways, 5 sets of characteristics to improve the impact of enterprise support organizations as they help enterprises grow and develop. I'm Nicholas Goff. I'm the director of the Argidius Foundation, and it's my pleasure to welcome Peter, Stuart, and Alice, who are going to help me to explore together with you some of the questions that arise about, so what does good look like when we're trying to help enterprises get better at what they do and serve their clients and customers more effectively? So Argidius is a private family foundation. We're based in Switzerland. We support enterprise support organizations to help SMEs and small and growing businesses and social enterprises develop. We've been doing this now in a focused way for almost 10 years. And when we started out 10 years ago, we had one really burning question, which was, do business development organizations actually help businesses grow and develop? So they come in many shapes and sizes. They come as peer networks, they come as accelerators, they come in doing coaching and mentoring, individual consultancy. Business support organizations come in various different forms, but the evidence base for how they helped, if they helped, and if so, what did good look like, was a bit opaque. Did accelerator programs, for example, actually accelerate, or did they just pick already accelerating businesses, do stuff to them, but the businesses just carried on regardless of what they had received? Which was a bit of a difficulty if you're a funder, spending lots and lots of money on business support and not actually knowing whether it's working. So we thought we'd try and find out. So over the last 10 years, we've supported over 50 organizations in over 100 programs, probably about 500 different cohorts and different engagements, which represents over 10,000 businesses. And we measured the same things. We measured incremental revenue, we measured full-time employment, and we measured the business's capacity to raise capital. And we thought those 3 measures would be known by the business, so relatively easy to collect. I use the word relatively, and also a good indicator of the resilience of the business and its growth. And then we could look at cost effectiveness. But we also evaluated programs. We interviewed lots of entrepreneurs, asking them questions. So what was it about this intervention that really did help, or what didn't help? And we also went out and sponsored research. So the GALI, the Global Accelerated Learning Initiative that was hosted by Andy, was an example of that. And we also collected research from others. So everything we could find that made sense around helping businesses to grow, we looked at. Random control trials in China for business networking, or for individual consultancy in Mexico, for example. And as we looked back at this, we could have just simply got lost in all this data, confusing data, and we could have discovered that actually nothing particularly worked effectively. But fortunately for us, having spent 7 or 8 years doing this, we actually began to see patterns that emerged of characteristics of good performance. And because we work in international development, we had to give these patterns an acronym. And so we thought of a cunning acronym. We called it SCALE, because after all, scale was the very thing we were trying to do in helping businesses to grow. And SCALE stands for select, so the importance of getting the right enterprise into your program. And if you're an entrepreneur, identifying the right program for you. Charging. So there's a whole debate about whether you should charge for services. And the answer is probably yes. Not necessarily the full economic cost of a program. That would be probably too much to ask. But charging does seem to affect people's behavior. Both the enterprise support organization's behavior in terms of its professionalism and commitment, and also the client's commitment to the program. A is for addressing problems, and the simple thing here is about how people learn. Most entrepreneurs are incredibly busy people, and they tend to learn when they've overcome a very specific challenge. I've got a cash flow problem. You help me solve my cash flow problem. I'm incentivized to learn how not to have that problem again. Most people don't learn in the way we think they do, i.e., there are several things you need to know in order to be a successful entrepreneur, and I'm now going to teach you them. Because they'll go in one ear and mostly come out the other ear. Learning, the importance of evaluating, the importance of enterprise support organizations having their own monitoring and evaluation systems, and how they learn from them in terms of their progress, and lead by example. If you're an enterprise support organization who's helping a business think about its strategy, well, what's your strategy going forward? If you're thinking about how to help business be more sustainable, well, what's your model of sustainability as an enterprise support organization? And this framework was not designed as prescription. It's not designed that if you follow SCALE, you will have successful impact. It's a set of characteristics, a set of lenses to help people think about their program and make adjustments. And sometimes those adjustments can be quite small. BP, which is an organization that works in Latin America, did 2 things differently. It changed the intensity of their program. Their program was too intense. They were expecting entrepreneurs to do too much and try and learn too much, and therefore not focus on what was important. And they charged for the first time. And interestingly, in charging for the first time, they had fewer applicants, which was a bit scary, but they actually discovered they had better applicants, which is a good thing. And the difference in impact between the cohorts that they used to run and the cohorts they now run is about a 66% increase in revenue on average across their portfolio. So very significant result in terms of change of impact. So significant, I almost fell off my chair and got really excited that for the first time in international development, I think I possibly knew something. So that's a really quick, high-level introduction to SCALE. But now we're going to look at what are some of those characteristics in more detail, and what have organizations actually done to put those into practice. So I'm going to turn now to Alice from Business Professional Network, an NGO based in Switzerland, but Alice is in Rwanda and runs their program in Rwanda. And I want to ask you, Alice, to pick perhaps 1 or 2 characteristics in the way in which you work with businesses which have proven to be the most effective from the entrepreneur's point of view.
Yes, thank you, Nicholas. Before I respond to your question, allow me to first thank the organizers for providing this platform where we create synergies between different stakeholders in the entrepreneurship space worldwide. I'm really thrilled and honored to be here today, dialing in from Kigali, Rwanda. So maybe a few words about BPN first. At BPN, we see ourselves as the home for leading and high potential entrepreneurs, where we help them grow into strong businesses that create as many sustainable jobs as possible. That's basically our mission. And we base on a holistic approach where we have a four pillar concept consisting of a business academy, a high-level business academy, a coaching, access to finance, and we build an alumni association. And all those services are embedded in values. So we put a high emphasis on values, on the attitude and the behavior of the entrepreneurs. And we talk about it in all those services that we offer. Values such as reliability, consistency, and so on. So we are in 5 different countries across the globe since 1999. And so based on our 10 years experience here in Rwanda, I can confirm that the scale components are truly accurate, as you have just presented them. Yes, indeed, it all starts with the right selection. Not every entrepreneur has the ambition and the capacity to grow a business. That's a reality we need to, that's a reality that we face. At BPN, we have put in place a rigorous selection process that allows us to identify those entrepreneurs who have the stamina to create lasting businesses and to create and to keep on improving those businesses and expand them in a sustainable manner. We don't want to do something that will fade away with us or after a few years. So sustainability is in the center of what we do. And once we identify those entrepreneurs, we bring them together and we work a journey of change with them. So we've realized that it makes a very big difference when we work for a long time with the entrepreneurs and we allow time to establish mutual trust, that they see us as their partner for growth, and that we can escort them through the different phases that obviously a business faces, be it huge opportunities, good opportunities, or hard times, pandemics, and so on. And and we encourage the entrepreneur to solve their problems and to solve the individual problems, but also the national problems. So they take a responsibility on a national scale. And with our support, we support them and we advocate for them to solve those issues. We monitor the progress and we discuss the progress with them. So this monitoring and showing them where they are standing compared to others and the contribution that they are bringing to the country. So monitoring is not only for us, but it's also a mirror for the entrepreneurs. So we share the results and we discuss them with them.
And Alice, I know that one of the things you've been working on is how to improve your coaching offering to entrepreneurs. So how did you come to that recognition that this might be a component that was both needed, and how did you go about bringing that into your program going forward?
Yes, excellent question. Thank you, Nicholas. Yes, so so we had from the beginning, the BPN program had the coaching component, and this coaching component was more or less done in an informal way. So we were basically in touch with the entrepreneur, and we realized that entrepreneurs needed a way to a more structured way and a more formalized way to unlock the ideas and to help them think through what they would like to achieve. So we realized that entrepreneurs were coming back with questions, and we didn't have a proper setup of how to approach it without presenting a solution. We wanted the solution to come from them. So we needed an approach that helps the entrepreneur to get the solution out of themselves. So so we decided to establish a dedicated coaching team, business coaches, and I believe we are among the first organization here in Rwanda that established dedicated coaching teams. And this coaching team have been trained by a London-based company called Creative Métier. This has helped us to become professional coaches and also to not feel like we have to solve the solutions. So the entrepreneurs in these coaching sessions, they find out what they need, they find out the solution, and they have ownership on them, and they start implementing them in their own way with our continued support. So coaching has been a crucial component in the activities we do as part of solving problems and also approaching opportunities. And yes, so
and were you able to carry that over into a sort of fully digital world when COVID hit?
Yes, yes. At the beginning, we were like, oh, will it be possible? Because the coaching has an aspect of a personal mutual trust, personal connection, allowing yourself to be vulnerable, and we were not very sure that it's going to work with COVID. But we all learn every day, so we managed to train the teams from a distance. So the team from London could not come to Rwanda. So we did the training for the team online. And at the same time, we established coaching sessions online through Teams, through phone calls, through different Zoom, Skype, and all those tools that are available right now. But at the same time, whenever there was an opening, wherever there was no lockdown, whenever the situation allowed, we gave the entrepreneurs the opportunity to come and see us. Mm-hmm. And in that context as well, what I noticed, the fact that we have been coaching entrepreneurs allowed us to do, during the pandemic, the very first lockdown that came, we were in a position to run an assessment of the SME impact of COVID on Rwandan SMEs. And this was only possible because we had already established this coaching culture with the entrepreneurs. So they were very open to share what the pandemic meant to them, what it's doing to their businesses, and how they are handling it, how their finances, how they are dealing with their finances, how they are dealing with their teams, how they are dealing with the whole situation. So coaching has been transformational in the work that we do here in Rwanda.
Super. Thank you, Alice. Peter, Impact Hub, global network, almost 100 impact hubs around the world. How have you thought about scale, and how have you thought about how to help that network with very different cultural contexts, very different locations, adapt to effective improving their business support?
Thanks for that question. As you say, we work with a lot of diversity. We have a huge diversity of contexts. I mean, we operate in Amsterdam and Khartoum and Caracas and Shanghai, very, very different places and cultures. But we also work with different sort of levels of experience or age of impact hubs, right? Some impact hubs have way over 10 years of experience. Some just started a few months ago. And we also work with other business development service providers beyond our network. And about 3 years ago, we realized that when it comes to providing support to enterprises, we didn't really have like a lot of that knowledge, a lot of that experience was held locally. And if an impact hub was new, or a new program manager came on board, they didn't really have a way of accessing that knowledge. So we really wanted to make it, first of all, more accessible and shared in the network, but also to deepen it and improve it, to make sure that the support we provide in all these different contexts is actually more effective. And finally, to also understand if it works and what works. And so, and this was at a time when I think the scale concept already existed. It wasn't in the beautiful form of the report that was just published yet, but I think it already resonated back then, very much with our own experience. And so what we did is that we basically worked with scale, but we also worked with other existing external resources at the time, and kind of combined it with the expertise of our program managers in all these different contexts, and worked with them to develop an online resource library that brings all of those resources in a format and language that is kind of fits our context, that our program managers can understand and work with. So we organized it in a similar way, like scale, like those different components, but we also organized it according to stage of venture development. So for example, we have tools for selection that are different if you're selecting for an idea stage program versus an investment ready program, for example. But we also wanted to make sure that it's not just kind of a static library of a lot of PDFs or a few videos. So we built a whole kind of curriculum of online training, also individual e-learning, and combined it with individual coaching to make sure that program managers not only learn effectively, but actually are supported to implement it in their context for their particular program and really get to experience the different elements of scale that they're changing for their program. And just so that you have a sense of the diversity, we work with about 100 or more than 100 program managers and hundreds more people who support enterprises. We currently run about 260 programs a year in the network, so across all the different stages. We put a lot of care into making sure that knowledge that we share is easy to access, is easy to learn depending on your learning style, and you're also supported to implement it on the ground.
And which leads to an important question, and that's a question also that somebody asked in the audience, and please do drop questions in to the box, and we'll try and get to as many of those as possible, which is about how do you actually monitor from your own point of view whether this is actually having impact. So what does monitoring look like when it comes to implementing a way of working, and then thinking about, okay, well, is this actually getting traction with entrepreneurs?
So there's monitoring on the level of an individual program, where we basically have developed as a part of the whole sort of scale methodology, templates for theories of change, and then templates for different surveys, so that we're able to, those can be still adjusted to the different programs and contexts, but we at least have sort of a minimal amount of data that we can collect across all those different programs, so that again, impact hubs and program managers on the ground have a sense of what actually works for them. And then we have kind of a community of practice where that gets shared across the network, basically. We're also collecting data on a global level. At this point, it's through basically an annual survey where we're also able to basically compare enterprises that have gone through an enterprise support program like an incubator or accelerator, and those that haven't and are quote unquote just participating in our usual kind of membership offering, and where we can see the difference. To be honest, the data is a little bit murky because not because the data is not good, but basically because it's a little difficult right now to compare 2018 performance of ventures to 2020 or 2021 because of the pandemic. But at the same time, we have seen also evidence that being able to provide support, kind of more focused support and more effective support to more enterprises, and the number of enterprises we've been able to support has more than doubled over the last few years. That it's been really essential in supporting businesses to pivot or change their offering or their business model in response to the pandemic. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's a little bit difficult to compare 2018 to today. So we're still learning.
No. Now, one of the things that we found and we put in our annual report that came out recently was we looked at both revenue and employment for businesses that had received support from our partners compared to the World Bank's survey of revenue and employment changes as a result of COVID. And there was a definite distinction. So both in terms of revenue decrease and employment preservation, the partners that we had funded were doing a better job than the average World Bank survey by a significant margin. And again, it's something we found in specific country contexts where there's been a crisis, Nicaragua being a good example a few years ago. Likewise, business survival rates and their ability to adapt to challenging circumstances are helped when they have external support and trusted relationships. Turning to Stuart, who, like me, has the challenge of thinking about, well, who to fund and why in this space. How does a funder look at what does good look like, and is scale and its characteristics any help to you?
Well, good morning and good afternoon, good evening from where I am at the moment in beautiful Wathaurong country in Australia, in a place that's now known as Geelong. Just want to start by paying my respects to the traditional owners of this place and their elders past, present and emerging. And also, just so this is not a paid endorsement, Nicholas, but just a shout out to you and to the Argidius Foundation for doing a lot of work. I mean, it's unusual, I have to say, to have such rich knowledge gathered over a long period of time to inform practice in the way you've done it. When I started out establishing, together with Peter McMullen, the founder of the Good Business Foundation here in Australia, we were looking for, what is out there. And you can go to different conferences and you can hear beautifully articulated, monitoring, evaluation, learning strategies, investment theses, whatever. But being a development professional, which is, put my hand up and say I've come from the development background, and that comes with all its baggage. But to see the scale, when I came across scale, it really piqued my interest for a number of reasons. Not just as a development professional, but also as a funder. We use scale really as a conversation starter. I think the main thing we've taken from scale, being relatively new, is take it as an invitation to have a conversation around, what does good look like? What are some of the aspects we need to discuss to put this forward? As you know, Nicholas, people like you and I, we sit in places and we can become, a little bit blind to what the reality is, sitting in different sort of positions, and as traditional donors, coming from the NGO world, it's geared towards telling the donor all the good stories, and so, or sometimes you find donors who have epiphanies and they just decide, well, I'm just going to just throw my money at this and just leave it to the community. But to actually sit down and have some of these conversations that are very important to create a dynamic that will actually maximize benefit, I think is really important. So just a couple of quick things. Firstly, as the Swedes say, you've got to dig where you stand. So leading by example, I mean, that really challenges the traditional sort of donor dynamic, where you need to start thinking about not just telling people what to do, but actually start thinking, doing it yourself. And having the right governance and so on, which is, it's challenging. If you think about charging, coming from the charity mindset of charging for, I don't do that. These are people that are poor. Yeah, okay, but this is a development we're talking about. We're not talking about humanitarian assistance now or charity. We're talking about how do we create a development paradigm that creates skin in the game, and also for business development organizations, actually, if what they're offering is valuable. People will take stuff for free. Why not? We all love free things. So there's a number of those different things, but probably before I finish, that sort of the one thing that popped out to me was this sort of solving problems, that as they emerge, that are coming from the community. and addressing those problems. You know, I worked with the bigger NGOs that some of the monitoring, evaluation, learning sort of frameworks were quite extractive. But when I was actually at Oxfam, I know you've been there as well, we had a sort of a South-South learning platform where people brought problems and they were solved in real time. And I saw the energy firsthand there of, you know, of organisations, of community practitioners feeling validated, that they're being listened to, that their issues have been taken seriously, and that they can work together on problems collectively and solve some of those problems. So, yeah, like I said, you can tell I'm a big fan of the work you've done. So I just wanted to thank you, and you know, we look forward to seeing how we can further implement it through our work as well with our partners.
Great, thanks, Stuart. So a question probably to anyone who'd like to answer this, or at least have a go at answering it, which is, and it's come up a couple of times now in the chat, which is, well, what do you actually do with this monitoring and evaluation stuff? So Alice, you know, once you've collected your data, what does BPN actually do with it in order to improve its performance?
Yes. Yes, of course, the data from on one side they serve for our partners and donors, but we see it more importantly as serving the entrepreneurs, but also serving the Rwandan ecosystem. So we anonymize the data and we publish. We create awareness in Rwanda. BPN is right now recognized as a trusted partner for different institutions that are related to business development, being Rwanda Development Board, the Ministry of Trade and Industries. And so based on this information that we collect, we advocate for the entrepreneurs, we create awareness of where the gaps are, where the needs are. And that's also where our alumni comes in. So we have a BPN alumni, and together with them, we communicate this information to other entrepreneurs. We show them where opportunities are, where everyone can be better, where entrepreneurs can benefit from each other. They make deals together, they support each other. We have started an initiative where the entrepreneurs in the alumni, they mentor the entrepreneurs who are coming up. When we do our M&E and we realize that someone is weak in one or the other area or needs the support in what, be it on markets or financial support, so we link them with entrepreneurs who are in our alumni. And so so the data are crucial because they allow us to take informed decisions. And very often here in Rwanda as a country, we have a lot of statistics, but most of the time they are on a macro level. And this allows us to provide data that are dedicated and that has been built on a mutual trust. The entrepreneurs know BPN, they trust us through that coaching relationship we have with them. So this data is reliable. We anonymize it to protect them and to keep this trust relationship. And so we have been publishing reports, for example, and we speak at different opportunities, we present, we see ourselves as a voice for the Rwandan entrepreneurs. Yes, so in a nutshell, I think those are the main points in regards to the data.
And I think it's important, and as Stuart mentioned it as well, this how to try to think about data which is not extractive. So you're trying to think of data that's actually valuable to the entrepreneur. I remember a conversation with a development funder who was envious of the fact that we had 3 data points because they weren't allowed to have 3 data points. They had to have multiple data points in order to satisfy their audiences that they were covering enough. And also seeing programs where actually the business consultant was spending more time collecting the data points than actually helping the entrepreneur actually grow and develop. And I remember asking that program, well, why do you collect that particular data point? And the three people opposite me just sort of all started looking at each other, and they'd probably forgotten why. So I think it's really important to think carefully about, what is it that we want to know, and when we say we, the we needs to flow all the way through the system, to the enterprise itself, the funder, and then other stakeholders in the community. And what have been the specific? I mean, obviously we're.
May I add a small point on that?
Yeah, sure.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Just a small one. So one important thing we have also learned with those data is we have stopped presenting them like blank Excel tables and numbers and percentages. We used that opportunity to showcase the entrepreneurs who are behind those data. So we create reports with pictures and with quotes of those entrepreneurs. So we make those reports in a way that we value the entrepreneurs. We don't want to use the entrepreneurs to get data. We want the entrepreneurs to be part of this, of the whole conversation, but also to own those data and to be the voice, to be the one. They are the ones speaking. We are not the ones speaking. Yes, just as a small addition. Thank you.
Very important.
Nicholas,
yeah, sure.
Just add quickly there. I think what Alice is pointing to as well is that dual sort of role that the business support organisations have, or the ESOs have, in impacting lives. Getting the business right, doing that part of the work, but then building the ecosystem, the relationship between people about the work, giving examples about how things could change. Different policies could be set in certain ways, and so that dual role that you're constantly trying to play between. Yeah, just getting the basics right. Of course, everyone wants to see the business succeed, but then creating the environment in which those things will continue and compound and live on, basically. Yeah.
Very, yes, and very important. And that also that sense which also Alice has picked up around the importance of peer learning and peer networking. And Peter, I know we've had this conversation around in Impact Hub, which obviously was and is a co-working space with informal community. But as part of this journey, it's also been how to be more intentional about building those kinds of communities. So how's Impact Hub gone about thinking about that?
Well, I mean, this has been, building a community of a trusting community and collaborative community of entrepreneurs and others that work with them and support them, has been the kind of core part of our identities since the very beginning for about 16 years now. But it's also evolved, of course. I think especially now that it's it's become a bit more virtual than before, or hybrid at least. And I think what's worked quite well for us is working more intentionally with groups of, or smaller groups of entrepreneurs that share a certain characteristic. They may come from a similar background, for example. They may be facing similar challenges. They may be the same kind of CEO or founder level. That depends, but really organizing them in a way where they have more in common, and both in our programs but also outside of those. That's been really helpful, and it helps to have a light facilitation, but eventually they can self-organize as well. But it's good to start with that at the beginning. Hope that answered your question.
Yep. No, that's very helpful, and it always also brings up one of my favorite random control trials, which is a Chinese one, which goes to show that business support doesn't have to necessarily be hugely expensive. So the process took a city in China, identified 2,000 businesses. Well, it's a city in China, so you can identify 2,000 businesses relatively straightforwardly. And half of those businesses, what they got was basically the opportunity to meet once a month in each other's premises. So they rotated around different business premises, And the first meeting was very lightly facilitated. So, and basically what they had the opportunity to talk about their challenges and problems and how to solve them. And they did that basically for 6 to 8 months. And the businesses that had that process grew 10% faster than the businesses that had been in the control group. So something as apparently simple as bringing together businesses that were similar, though not necessarily of size and age, they're not necessarily of activity, because that also creates its own challenges. If you're actually trying to help your competitor solve a problem, that might not go down so well. And something as simple as that can make a significant difference. So in building out scale, these are the kinds of things we're trying to look for and see what are these common strands that ran across the business development processes that we wanted to improve and support. And there's another question, which is actually just to ask, where do you get further details from Scale? Well, you can go to our website and go to the learning section on our website, and it's the pinned, I would say pinned tweet, but the pinned piece on that website, and you can see the full report, the case studies, and also tools to help people reflect on Scale. I can't recommend this unless you're an insomniac as bedtime reading, but it's not meant to be read from A to Z. It's meant to be something you dip into and look at and reflect on. And probably, I suspect, one of the most helpful parts of that is the case studies, where organizations, 6 organizations, 5 of our partners and 1 organization that isn't, in fact, to look at how they've done this, both from a delivery point of view, but also from an organizational point of view. Because obviously some of these things actually require you to think about how you organized as well as what you do. And I think it's and to pick up Stuart's point about, the example point about the enterprise support organization, if you're wanting to support an entrepreneur, think about their governance. Well, are you thinking about your own governance? And actually also how thinking about your governance as an organization can also make really significant difference to how you're working. We have a partner in East Africa, not BPN, and one of the things he said is, well, have you thought about your governance? And they went away and they thought about it. And about a year later, they came back and said, Nicholas, it's so good to have somebody, to talk to who has experience of organization and the development of organization and can take so much of the weight off, because often many enterprise support organizations are themselves relatively new. It's a relatively new area. They themselves are still, adolescents in working out what does the organization look like. And so paying attention to their structures and their support is very important. So 3 or 4 minutes to go. Does anyone have, one last helpful comment about how to improve the impact of an enterprise support organization before we wrap this session up? No pressure.
Yeah, I just resonate with what you said in terms of, it's not only thinking about how you change your program, but actually how you build up the systems and processes and your own capacity as a team or as an organization to be able to support it. So again, a lot of the work we've done actually is focused on that, so that scale can happen on the ground.
Yeah, and I look, I just put in and say, like you said, Nicholas, this is something you could. The report's a fantastic report, but I wouldn't start from front to cover to back cover, but just skim through it, pick out some of those conversations that you can have with your partners, and start there. Maybe list down 10 questions you can ask next time you have a conversation, or even 3 questions, and just start with that, and just start the conversation, moving it forward, because it's rich in its. As I said, the work you've done is quite rich in its development approach. And so you can sort of start anywhere you like, but just start somewhere.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and I would add on that the importance of building strong local teams, that the ownership and the responsibility goes down to the local team, rather than having a few experts who do the job, so to say, and then some of the local teams moving around and keeping in touch with people. Because it's also a part of building up the countries, contributing to also to sustainability. Yes, thank you.
Super. Well, thank you, Alice, Stuart, Peter. Thank you for people who are participating and listening to this. The video will indeed be available. So it will be YouTube stars shortly. And just one last sort of passing point, I suppose one of the most powerful images that came out of Scale for me was just remembering that piece about how do people mostly learn. And most people, most of the time, learn when they have a challenge or a problem to solve, and then get excited, and then go and find out, well, how not to have this problem again. And one of the challenges, I think, is that many learning programs are designed by people, the small minority of people who just really enjoy learning for its own sake. And so they produce these curricula, and the important thing is, how do you tie any curriculum to actually people's real-time problem solving going forward? So thank you very much. Scale on the Argidius website. Pop the details in the chat box. Enjoy the conversation, as Stuart would say. And if you are an insomniac, it will probably help put you to sleep. Thanks very much, everyone, and goodbye. There we go. Done.